Hello and welcome to another episode of You First. That's right. It's all things about you, and you. I am your host, Shawanna Kennedy. Excited to be here today. You already know this is your safe space. We talk all things self-care, mental well-being, and personal empowerment, empowering you to make yourself a priority, because if you don't, who will? Which brings me to my guest today. This young lady has over 15 years of expertise, right? She knows a thing or two and is going to help us break free. Miss Karlyn Benn. Miss Karlyn Benn, she has over 15 years. She's a psychotherapist. She's a liberation specialist. She's going to help us get and talk about some of that people pleasing, the things that we need to talk about, the low self-esteem, especially in the culture and in the season that we're in. So I'm excited to bring a professional. You know how I feel about my experts, because that's sometimes we need to have that uncomfortable conversation so that we can be better and be okay and be unapologetic about making ourselves a priority. So if you will help me welcome to the platform, none other than my super guest today, Miss Karlyn Benn. Hey, Karlyn.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited because I know what it was like for me with my self-care, my journey, my awakening, as some people call it, my self-discovery walk, right? And I do believe too that it's something that we have to, it's not just that moment, whenever that year might have been, that month. It is continuing work. It's continuing with, and I'm glad that you talk and you help people get through the guilt about trying to make it perfect, right? Talking through all of the ugly. What I want to know, so we can jump right in, because I want to squeeze all that we can out of you, Miss Karlyn. I want to squeeze it all out. What even started you on your journey, your personal journey that led you down this professional path?
Okay, yes, I know our time is limited, so I will give you the Cliff Notes version of it. But it turns out that I was dealing with this before I could even remember I was dealing with this. And I've shared with my audience before that I was cleaning out my closet one day, and my mom has this, there were 6 of us. And so what she'll do is she'll go through and do some cleaning herself, and she'll come across pieces from our childhood, and she'll give us boxes of all the stuff, right? And this one particular time, I'm going through my closet and I take out a report card, and it was from 2nd grade. And on the report card, it says, Carla is great. She has friends. Her peers love her, but I often find her in the cubby crying, saying that she's ugly and that nobody likes her. And at the time, my teacher, let my parents know I'm really concerned about her self-esteem, just to give you a heads up. And let me tell you, Shawanna, when I read that for the first time, like I bawled, right, for 7-year-old Carla, right, Karlyn, at that time, because she was hurting, and to not even be able to properly place it. Well, fast forward a year later, I went on my first diet. Okay, that I do remember. In 3rd grade, I went on my first diet because I was bigger than all of my friends. I was bigger than all of my peers, and I wanted to be smaller. All right. So I'm a tall girl. So I was larger and I was taller. So that was just a combination that I was extremely unhappy with. And it started from there. And so we're talking years of beating up on myself, masking it by trying to be perfect, because I didn't love myself at all. And so if I could just make up for the fact that I am X, Y, and Z by getting everything right, being nice to everyone, letting people walk all over me, then that way they won't pay attention to the huge flaws that I had created in my mind about myself. And that continued for a couple decades. I didn't start to make a shift, until I was in my 30s. Now, mind you, I have gone on to receive my master's in counseling. I have become a licensed professional counselor, right? I had dabbled in some other certifications. And through all of this, I am still very mean to myself. I'm beating up on myself. I don't love myself. I'm allowing myself to be used and abused in relationships, right? And it wasn't until I reached my 30s that I was ready to literally end it all. I stood in my kitchen with a handful of pills, and I was like, God, this is your, I know that you're, as a believer, this isn't what you want from me, and I know that, but I need you to forgive me for what I'm about to do, because I just can't take this pain anymore. I can't do this anymore. And as I was praying that prayer, I was just like, but I know you and you know me. So if there's something else that you want to tell me before I make this move, I'm here to listen. And my phone rang, and it was my brother, which my family is my all, right? And it was my brother, but on the phone, there was a picture of my niece. That was his picture for his number. And I saw her face and lost it. Like, I hit the ground bawling. There was no way I was going to cause my family that much pain. And I knew that was God talking to me, because he knew how to hit me. He knew that I love my family with my whole heart, right? But I promised myself, as I picked myself up off the floor that day, that I was no longer going to live life like this. This was not the life that he had meant for me. And I asked for guidance for how I needed to start working on my healing. And that's the day I started. And it led me to here. It led me to
wow.
here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about a start. That was, and I'm rarely at a loss for words. Wow. To kick it off with that, I appreciate your transparency. I appreciate your vulnerability in sharing that. I know that there is so many people who can actually say that was me, right? Raise their hand and say that was me. It definitely a parts of your story that not only resonate with me, they're a part of my own personal truth about the whole doing certain things because you would, in the hopes that it would deflect from something else. So that's why, in moments like this, I appreciate when people can recognize what it is and actually call it out, because that's why, we need people such as yourself to help liberate us and to help us break free from those thoughts that are not true. But we know that we are human, and sometimes we're allowing other things to be other than our authentic self to stand up and to rise up. I appreciate that. But what a way to, when I say, see, now you have to be careful when you ask people to tell you a little bit about themselves. You just might get it, right? Then there's that. I do though, but that was strong. That was strong. And it makes me personally, even just like I said, think about my own story when I think about weight, when I think about childhood, when I think about the moments that being insecure and not feeling that I was liked, or might have even, I believe at a certain time, I didn't even realize that I might have had low self-esteem, or wouldn't even known what to call it, right? If we're being honest, because everybody, and you're going to help us with that too, because sometimes you are experiencing low self-esteem and don't even realize that is what's happening with you.
Absolutely.
Can you? Yeah. So let's talk about that. When you think about a person, they could be watching right now. Something could be going on with them, whether it's external or internal, because I know you speak about the inner critic. What is some sheer signs to show, or that people would say, hey, I really need to check me right here, because I might be going through something and it could fall along the lines of low self-esteem?
A telltale for me was always, and for a lot of the clients I work with, I ask them to sit with who they are in their quiet time, who they are when they're by themselves, because we have perfected the ability to put on for others when we're around other people, whether that be at work, even with our friends, our family. Nobody knew I was dealing with what I was dealing with. To this day, people that know me will hear that story and say, no, not you. Everything was fine. And it wasn't, right? So it's in those moments when we are by ourselves. How are we feeling? What are the things that we're saying to ourselves? When we walk past the mirror, do we automatically beat ourselves up? Do we have a hard time getting out of the bed as soon as we're able to shut off the world? We just go straight to the bed and try to numb, whether it be through eating, or watching something, binge watching shows. It can be through sex. It can be through alcohol, drugs, like whatever the choice is for you. How are you feeling when it's just you? What are the conversations you have with yourself? And a lot of the times when I question to my clients, it either is immediately met with tears because of how awful they may feel or how mean they are to themselves, right? But it starts the dialogue. Then we can bring to light what it is that we have been hiding from the world, hiding from everyone else in regard to how we feel. It's important in those moments to be honest with yourself, though, because it can, from the way that we show up in the world, can spill over and we can be in almost a form of denial of sorts and not have honest conversations with ourselves either.
Talk about that for a second. You spoke about the honest conversation when you may actually know, and especially if you've done any type of self-work, right?
Mm-hmm.
If a person is on here and they've done any type of self-work, read a book, leaned into, you know, some online favorite, and you're like, hey, I recognize certain things, because I'm a believer in calling it what it is, because if we call it what it is, to me, that's a step for me personally where I was able to begin to take my power back by calling it what it was and not lumping it all under something else, right? It's even with a headache. I always even go with a headache because in times past I've had to, you know, through medication with headaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bad, excruciating headaches. And when I knew that it was a different type of headache, that's when I'm like, no, this is something else, and being able to give it a name. So then we'll know how to go get the help for that thing.
That's it. Part of what I'm hearing you say is just raising awareness, being aware and admitting that, right? Which may not be leaning completely into acceptance, but at least you're starting the conversation, right? And once we do that, now we have something to work with, okay? It's very easy to hide behind, I don't know, and I'm okay, all right? I'm okay. How you doing? I'm fine. You know,
I hate that. Did you know that is a peeve? I don't.
I'm fine.
Like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine. It's like, is it an A, B, or a C? And you saying, I'm fine. That's like it's the passing grade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that just me?
It is. And there's so many layers to that, right? Because if I'm not comfortable with trusting whomever it is that I'm saying that to, right, that may be why I'm saying I'm fine. But the I'm fine, I think we're referencing is girl to girl, you know, like friend to friend, family to family. I call you and I ask you how you're doing and you say, oh, girl, I'm good. But you are torn up on the inside, right? You have no idea where to place all of the range of emotions you are feeling. You had a really bad day and you are frustrated, but instead of saying that, you say, I'm fine. Okay. And that is where the not being honest comes into play. So part of the work I do with clients is walking them through what I have deemed the method I've created. It's called the free method. All right. And it's a process that takes them on a journey to be able to get to a place where they can fully embrace self-love. All right. And just to quickly take you through, the F is the friend within, the R is rooted communication, the E is empowered boundaries. The next E is embrace vulnerability, which is what we're touching on right here. And then you have the bringing it all together, which is just being in a place of full radical acceptance. Okay. And that embracing vulnerability is difficult because if I tell people that I am feeling sad and frustrated and just over a lot of things, right, I'm putting myself out there. We may view that as being weak. All right. We may view or say that they may judge us. They may reject us. All of these different things that prevent us from being able to be vulnerable, that happens all of the time. But when you are able to truly sit in a place of self-love, embracing and walking into that vulnerability isn't as scary anymore. Because truth be told, what is it? If I love myself, I'm not looking for that acceptance or validation from other people. I give it to me so I can be vulnerable and not be so concerned that they're going to judge me or reject me. Right. That's part of this process.
I love it. Because when I think about who we are, it's like leaning into the authentic. I know people say that are like, be your authentic self, be unapologetic, but it's truth to that. It's really truth to that, because if you're not honest with yourself, then that means it's definitely spilling over into the other relationships. I know that when I think about this show, a lot of the viewers and folks that watch, they are some form of faith belief, right? So we know that we've heard the good book say that, like a good neighbor, be a good neighbor to others. Well, I say it does. It definitely starts with ourselves when we think about the good book. The thing is, have you been a good neighbor to yourself? Because that's why we have some of the relationships that we have, or the lack thereof, because we have not been a good neighbor to ourselves. And it's saying, well, love your neighbor. But that's the problem. People don't truly love themselves, or a portion of themselves, and it definitely spill over into those other relationships, and where it leans into mistrust and other things about like that. So talk to me a moment for that when we think about being a good neighbor, right? I say it starts with you being a good neighbor to yourself, because that's why we have so many failed relationships, because we don't know what that look or feel like, honestly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is definitely the key in the work that I have done, and I see is that's the key part of that scripture, right? That passage is love your neighbor as you love yourself. And it's difficult to expect us to be able to love our neighbors when we don't know how to love ourselves. We are doing unintentionally, but we're not doing it wholeheartedly because we don't know how. And so if we are able to sit with and learn to love ourselves in such a way that now I can pour into someone else, because, my cup is semi-full, life will life, and we will have our things, right? But if I am pouring from a cup that is on the full side, I can definitely lean into how to embrace my neighbor, how to pour into them, how to show them things that they may not have even known before, because I have taken myself through the journey and the process of figuring out how to do it for myself, which is not easy. All right. It's not, how do I encourage you to be vulnerable when I'm not willing to do that with myself? And that is where the honest conversation comes in that we have with ourselves. And so it ends up being like just a full circle moment.
Yeah. I have experienced that. And it's when you even look back, how you mentioned earlier about the younger version of you. Yeah. And for me, it's looking at it and saying, you know what, you did okay. You did okay. And as you can see, we're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good right now. And I think that can lift your spirits, because I know all of us have doubts. All of us have uncertainty. All of us have, if you've lived a little bit, there are a few things. I know some people are saying, I don't regret anything. But if you're a person that believes in growing and evolving and thriving, there's a few things you say, you know what, maybe not a regret, but there's a few things I wish I could have done just a little bit different. I want you to even talk to the person that's stuck on things being perfect instead of how it's holding them up. It's holding them up for what they're called to do, what their purpose to do. But that perfection is truly holding them back. Talk to the person that may be even, kind of stuck in that perfection, and it's being used as a tool to hold up their destiny.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as with me, the way that I even started this conversation is because I go through and learn from my experiences, which then gives me the ability to fully step into helping others through theirs. Right. And so the perfectionism, I was able to work through it in one area of my life, but I have been faced with now having to step into another part of my journey and work on it now in my business world. And those pieces of me that were in there, they try to creep up and rear their ugly head. All right. But I now have the ability to be kind to myself. And so I could talk myself through it a little differently. We are only able to do and be the best we are able to at the time, right? And that is something that if we start there and give ourselves the grace around that particular truth, that paves the way for us to not necessarily have to live from a place of regret, but to use every experience as a learning, a jumping board, a place to start. Dang, all right, if I had the opportunity to do it differently, I wouldn't do it like I did it before. But thank you. What I have started doing, thank you, God, for that experience, because now I know not to do that again. Right now, I know that I can choose differently, and my differently still may not be right, but it's getting me closer to exactly where I'm supposed to be, exactly to my version of right. All right. So it's being able to lean into more of that and not sit in shame, feelings of shame. Okay. Because the shame will keep us in that place. The shame of not having it all right, not having it all together. That is when we start to, really be consumed and concerned with what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say. And that will keep us stifled. But if we realize that we are all humans living the same experience, right? Varying degrees, and it looks different. It does for a lot of us, but nobody is going to get it all right. And as believers, we know there was only one that did. Okay. And so if we can stop putting that pressure on ourselves to do things so perfect all the time and give ourselves room to make mistakes and grow, we can then reach back and help the person that's coming up behind us, whether it be a coworker, a child, whomever. Right. But if we can just really start with being kind and gentle with ourselves, it helps. It helps the whole process.
Yeah, that is true. It's all true. I hope that you are listening. I hope that you are sharing this with someone. Make sure you actually go right now and follow Karlyn, because these are things that she talks about all the time. This young lady, she is blowing up TikTok over there, giving you all the deeds. So you look, you can get it right here. You can get it right here. You can see right here. So make sure, because you will be able to see all her information. Make sure you're following her, showing her some love, even in the comments as we speak. I'm loving this conversation because we do have to be okay to talk to ourselves. A long time ago, people said, man, don't talk to yourself. They'll think you're crazy. I say, here's the thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with talking to yourself. And I say, matter of fact, be okay to answer yourself. Don't just leave yourself out there. How about that? What you got to say about that?
Absolutely. I talk to myself all the time. And I share, especially with the friend within piece. I have to have conversations with myself. The other day, a couple weeks ago, I was, trying to get back in my groove as the new year is starting. And I had been on vacation towards the end of the year, and I'm having a hard time jumping back into it. And I started to beat up on myself for not getting up at a certain time, not doing my devotion at a certain time, and then going to the gym like I knew I needed to do. And I said, stop. I call myself KB. When I talk to myself, I call myself KB. So I was like, KB, now you know better. Come on now. We're not going to do that, right? At least you got up this morning, and even if it was only for 15 minutes, you did it for 15 minutes, because you know yourself enough to know that 15 will turn back into the 30, will turn into the 45, and then the hour that you set aside for this time. But you have to be kind to yourself. And these are literal conversations that I have with myself to reframe and shift that negative conversation, because if I don't do it, it will take over. That negative voice will take over. And so talking to yourself, it is, I highly recommend it. This is just where we come back to that piece where you have to be honest, right? Because if you are leaning into the negative conversation, then that's not going to help you move forward. So you have to be honest with yourself. No, I didn't wake up like I wanted to. That's honest, right? And also, at least I woke up and I did something. That's honest too. All right. We tend to only focus on the fact that I didn't get up when I wanted to, and not the fact that I got up and did something. So yes, I'm with you, Shawanna. Talk to yourself. All right. And encourage yourself.
Yeah, I love it, because one of the things that I say, look, I'll help you as I have helped myself and others. Look, for you viewer listening, I've even had to lean in and tell the back of my mind to shut the double hockey sticks up, right? Because sometimes that voice tries to be so loud. I will even send a message and say, tell the back of your mind to shut the double hockey sticks up. That's right. And I mean it just the way I said. I'm just trying to keep it PG just in case the kids are looking and listening. But yeah, every now and then we have to do that because that voice will be so big, especially if you are doing something that is where your already knees are shaking, teeth are chattering, but you know that this is something that you're called to do. You're about to take a leap or a step of faith. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to lean in because it's going to happen. So one of the final things I want to ask you too is even help someone that with that inner critic and how that has really stopped some opportunities. And we really honestly don't want that to continue. Talk about that inner critic, if you don't mind.
Yes. It had the root cause. There's so many root causes of why we're so negative with ourselves and to ourselves, right? But what I want to spend the time focusing on is how to start to shift that. All right. There are so many different things that you can do, so many tips, but just to give a couple, you want to, one, pay attention to how you're feeling. All right. When your mood starts to shift, that is your cue. That is your cue to circle back to your thoughts. And it takes intentionality. You have got to definitely pay attention to yourself and not try to mask and just rush through the day. All right. But when you start to notice your mood shifting, stop and ask yourself, what is going on? Did something just happen? What am I telling myself as a result of what happened? Is there room for me to look at this differently? All right. That is one place to start. Our emotions tend to be a telltale sign of what is going on in our minds. All right. Then also a little step that I encourage people to do is start tracking your wins. All right. And I just had this conversation the other day. It doesn't matter how big or small the win is, but start congratulating and encouraging yourself in that way. Shawanna, my mind, there's so many pieces to this. All right. Because there's an entire subconscious conversation to be had around this as well. But you want to start to train your subconscious. There's such thing as neuroplasticity, which is a new something that has been discovered in the brain, that our neural pathways, we can change them. We feel like we have the way that we are is the way that we will always be, how we always have to be. And that is not true. All right. So the more you do something, you are capable of changing the way that it has been. And so what you want to do is you want to start to congratulate yourself. Wow, I drank water today. And yeah, it was only 1 cup, but usually, honey, I go through the whole day and don't even have a cup. So good job. Let's try to do 2 cups tomorrow. All right. Maybe you smiled at a coworker. All right. And you really can't stand this coworker, but they walked by and you said you were going to work on being a more kind individual, and you smiled, and it was forced, but you did it. All right. We want to start to celebrate the smallest of small things to start to train our brain on how to be kind to ourselves. All right. That is something else that you can start to do. But be aware of the conversations that you are having with you. And this is the one that we hear all of the time, but it is talk to yourself like you would a friend. And those of us that are good friends, all right, we would not talk to our friends the way that we talk to ourselves. And so replaying the conversations you have with yourself and asking you, would I have said that to my best friend? Would I have said that to my little sister? Would I have said that to my coworker as I'm encouraging them through a difficult situation? And most times you wouldn't. So I want you to start changing the conversation in your head as if you were talking to them. How would you encourage them? And then I want you to just change the name and apply it to yourself and encourage yourself. Those are definitely some ways that I start with helping people shift that inner critic.
I love it. I love it. I know you have appreciated the conversation that we have had today, this chat with Miss Karlyn Benn. Make sure y'all following her. As you already know, she said she was ready to go to that subconscious conversation. And I think that means we're going to actually have to have her back. Y'all already know. I know y'all don't have to tell me. Y'all don't have to tell me. We're going to have her because I want to know, and because that leans into the rewiring of our thoughts, the rewiring of our brain. Yeah, I told you I've done a little self-work myself, right? And it's important because the more and more we build ourselves, it's beneficial to us, but the people that around us are blessed so much more when we are healthier. It's not just about the physical things that we eat. It is all about what's going on inside of our mind that affect everything else around us and the people that we get to have any influence around our life and all of it. I appreciate you so much, Karlyn, for pausing from your day. Look, taking a pause in the calendar from your clients who may need you, right? They could be in crisis, and having this conversation with the viewers, the You First viewers. So we appreciate you for being here. And y'all already know, yes, I'm definitely going to have her back. So thank you, Karlyn, for stopping by the You First house today. So thank you. Yeah, let me get them out of here. All right. I appreciate y'all so much for pausing for the cause for this episode of You First, because you already know it's about you. I'm your girl, Shawanna Kennedy. Make sure, don't be ashamed. It don't hurt for you to subscribe. It don't hurt for you to share. All of that is free. So I would appreciate if you do that little bitty small big thing for me. Thank you so much for all of your support, all of your love, people commenting and sharing. I'm just excited to be back. And you already know that I'm better for who I am. And it's all because of the who, and all of this is you. I appreciate you. And I will see you guys again on our next episode of You First. Bye for now. This episode is brought to you by Kennedy Media and Entertainment, your premier video productions and digital visibility partner. Working with business owners just like you to be seen, heard, and paid by elevating your brand with high-impact video content, online visibility strategies, and expert social media management. Ready to stand out in your industry, on and off camera? Contact Kennedy Media today, and let's turn your message into a movement. Because visibility isn't optional, it's essential. Contact KennedyMediaLLC.com, KennedyMediaLLC.com, and let's boost your brand's visibility. It's time for you to be seen, heard, and known for your expertise. Contact us today.